All right, well, welcome back to After the Shot, another episode, and this week I'm going to have something a little bit different for you. In the past, we looked at a lot of my older work. Now I'm going to take you to some of the stuff I'm doing right now. And this happens to be right near Atlanta, where I live, at an historic battle site, and I'll actually kind of show you where it is. It's a national park in this area, and basically what I'm going to show you here, it's a forest scene that obviously you might take in the woods there. It's the sun streaming through the trees, and oftentimes the way you see it and the way it comes out in the camera can appear to be two different things. So I kind of want to show you how to maybe bring it back to what you remember and maybe accentuate a little bit better, because oftentimes we remember things a little bit more rosy in our minds than actually it may have looked. So let me go ahead and show you this image here on the screen. A perfectly fine image as far as the lighting and everything. But, you know, there's a lot of dark shadows, some harsh light, and a lot of that comes from cameras. They do not see as well as our eyes do. So they're not going to see as much detail in the shadows and in the highlights as our human eyes do. Now, newer cameras are better at this than older ones, but, you know, even these ones that are a few years old now, they still look pretty good. So let's take you in here and see a few things we could do. I'll just show you a couple different quick variations that, you know, you might assume that you want to do here. One, of course, is do black and white. I love black and white, and we can go in here and we can kind of do that dreamy effect that I like. You know, and that's fine. Just decrease clarity a little bit, increase the highlights to blow them out, make it a little more dreamy. That's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. By the same measure, we could go in here and go back to color and say, you know what, let's just kind of saturate a little bit, make it a little bit warmer, or increase the color temperature there to make it warmer, and then we can bring up the vibrance, which increases the saturation a little more subtly than the saturation tool does. But I mean, that's fine, but again, it's not great. So we can do a lot more here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear this out and go right back where we started here. So a couple things I'm noticing right here off the bat. I like what's going on up here. But down here, I'm not quite sure what this kind of blob is down here. I don't even like this composition down here. So what I'm going to do is take my crop tool, and we will go ahead and crop this to make it a little bit more pleasing to my eye here. So let's say about right there. So we'll crop that out. Again, I don't think those other things are really doing too much for us. And then what we'll do as well, like we were doing before, I want to make it a much warmer image to make it a little bit more, appear to be a little more colorful and maybe how you remember it. Because a lot of times what happens when you're in shadows, your camera will actually make the camera a cooler color temperature, basically make it a little bit more of a blue image than a golden yellow image. So we kind of have to restore that. And some cameras are different than others, but oftentimes that's what happens. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, about right there or so. And then I'm going to go down here to vibrance, and we're going to go ahead and increase that a little bit. Now, what we've done is not much. We've basically gotten back to what I was doing at the very beginning with that color image. We made it a little more saturated, a little bit more warmer. But there's a little bit more that I want to go ahead and do. And I want to make it a little bit more dreamy because we're in the forest, the light's coming through, and that's kind of the way people see it, at least in my opinion. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, one of my favorite ways to do this is to decrease the clarity. This makes it a little bit softer. And you can see already when we do that, the details start to disappear. Now, you don't want to do too much because then it just looks a bit ridiculous. But we'll go ahead, slide it down here just a little bit. And I think that will help us out quite well. Okay, so let's stop there for now. Now, one thing I'm noticing is the light is shining right through here. And over here, we're not getting as much light. So I actually want to accentuate that and make that a little bit more noticeable. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and use a manual adjustment brush, as I often do, so I can individually select a specific part of the image. And we're going to say, decrease the exposure of these areas by about 1 stop or so, just a little bit, not too much. We may fool around with that here as we go on. And ooh, let's think. That brush size is a little bit too big for me. I think the feather, though, is good. Again, the feather is this dotted outer line. That's where the filter actually will fade off as opposed to having an abrupt end. So we'll go ahead in here and just paint. Whoops. Oh, I see why. So now I got the mask select. That basically shows me, in fact, I can do that again. This will show me where I'm actually applying it, but I don't need that right now because that just is going to fool us. So let's go ahead and deselect that, and we'll go back in here. And actually, that one stop there is quite a dramatic effect, so we may even go back in here and reduce that. And that's probably a bit too much, but let's go ahead and just paint this area so you can get kind of an idea. And I'm going to go in here, and I'm probably going to paint some of this down here as well, because this really isn't quite doing it for me. Okay, and let's fool around with that. Okay, and ooh, might have a little more contrast there, something like that. Okay, so as you can see, what we're doing now, again, we're focusing our eye into this area right here where the primary attention is, where the light is, okay? And I think I want to actually make this even more dreamy, but I only want to do it in one part of the image, which is right here. Because if I start doing it over here, it's going to look way too much here. So I'm going to go ahead and get a new adjustment brush. And I will go ahead and reset my settings. And I think what we're going to do is a slight increase in exposure, and then we're going to go ahead and change that clarity again to make it a little bit even more dreamy. And I'm going to do a pretty big brush, but I'm just going to kind of just give a big dollop about right here, about right there. As you can see, as we did that, it even kind of accentuated that stream of light that's coming through. So that's actually pretty cool. I think we got lucky there when we dropped our dollop of adjustment there, if you want to call it that. Excuse me. Okay, so let's go ahead and explore. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit and see what's going on. Okay. Now, one thing I'm noticing right away, and this is because there's probably a little bit of flare in the image, and what flare is, it's where the sun actually touches your front element of your lens, that glass right there, and adds a bit of a kind of a color shadow. Now that can actually be a pretty cool effect. In fact, I think it's actually helping this image here. But what's happened, and we'll go back to the image on the screen, is that we've introduced some kind of weird color right here. You can kind of see a big blob right here, and this weird kind of blue. This kind of more orangey one does not bother me nearly as much because that's more of our color scheme, but this blue right here does. So I'm going to go ahead and get a new adjustment brush. And what I'm going to probably do, it's going to be a very simple edit. I'm just going to decrease the saturation of that particular part of the image because it's actually quite monochromatic right there. And we'll go ahead and make a small adjustment brush. And hey, quick tip here, if you want to draw a straight line, again, this is Adobe Camera Raw, you'll go ahead and hit a tap, press your Shift key, and then where you want the final part of it to be, it's actually going to draw a straight line. And I'll show it to you a little bit more. So as you can see, that's a straight line. And actually, it's a pretty decent amount of saturation that we took out. But again, it's only a very small area. You can see we eliminated that blue haze there pretty effectively. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'm also going to go ahead and do one other thing. There's not too much of this in this image, but I see a little bit of it. It's called chromatic aberrations, excuse me, that's a big word, chromatic aberrations. It's basically where you have in the shadows either a blue or a purple tint and kind of contrasty areas. So I'm going to go ahead and actually just click a little checkbox and remove any of that because I saw a little bit up here. You may not be able to see it much on the screen, but it can be more noticeable, especially in very contrasty images. And while we're looking here at 100%, I want to say, ooh, let's go ahead and make this image a little bit sharper. Go ahead and do that. And there's a tad bit of noise. You can see it right here, the kind of speckles. Let's go ahead and use our noise reduction, kind of bring that, tame that down just a little bit. And again, that can happen when you start to increase, bring more details out of the shadows. You get a little bit of noise. It depends how neat your camera is, but you are going to get a little bit of noise because your camera actually didn't expose for what you're adjusting to, and noise comes out. So you'll want to correct for that in many cases. Okay, So I really think we're getting somewhere here, but I am still looking here and saying, you know, I'm not quite where I want to be just yet. There's still a few things going on that I'm not a big fan of. A couple things right here and right here. It is too distracting for the most of this image. Again, we're going after that stream of light. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another adjustment brush. You can see all the other ones we've already done. And okay, it's going to decrease our exposure just a little bit here. Let me check my feather. Okay, I guess we have enough there. It's just kind of hard to see because the brush is so small. Okay, let's see what I got. Whoops, it's not liking that. Let's see here, size. There we go. And we're going to come in here and do a little bit of painting, I would say. Not too much. I'm questioning whether I want to go over here as well. Let's see what we got. Okay, yeah, I think that's starting to make it a little bit less noticeable for us than filling in here. Otherwise, it's going to be too blotchy. That's one thing you got to be careful with these adjustment brushes. If you start making them very small and painting with them, it's going to look like you went with some sort of glue or something over an image, little blotches. So oftentimes a bigger brush looks more natural because it's not as noticeable that you actually made an adjustment. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And let's see what else I have here. Then down here, you know what I think I'm going to do? I want more of a smooth transition from a little bit darker here to lighter there. And there's actually a filter for that. That's the gradient filter. I'm going to use the same settings for now. We'll come up in here and let's get that filter out of the way. I may adjust that a little bit. And the way this works is the green is where the filter is in full effect, and the red is where it actually ends. So you can adjust that. Let's see what we got. In fact, let's kind of expand that out a little bit. And again, the more I expand it, the more the filter effect increases or decreases. You can see that there. So let's see. I almost want to say make a little bit more clarity. I think, like I was saying before, and this may have been because of the sun flare, there was kind of that blotch down there, which I think may have creeped in, but we'll figure that out. Okay. Let's make it a little bit less still. That's one thing you got to do. You kind of got to fool around with this and make it happen. Okay, so let's see what we got. I like to kind of zoom out a little bit and take a look at it. So we've accentuated this area right here. We've done a pretty good job with that. And we've made some of this darker to accentuate what we've done. We made it a little bit more dreamy right there. I want to do a couple more things just to kind of touch it up. We're almost done, I promise. I want to go ahead and actually make this area down here just a little bit more dreamy as well. And you can see as we do that, it's just going to make it a little bit more creamy, that particular highlight right there. So I like that. And then I think what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to use some more gradient filters up here, because I want to make this a little bit darker as well. Not necessarily this over here, because I want that light stream coming in. And you may remember in past weeks, we do a post-crop vignette, which evenly darkens all the sides of the image. I don't want that here because I still want that stream of light not to be affected by that. So in this case, I guess we're darkening 3 corners, so we have to do it manually as opposed to using the quick filter. So that's why we're doing this. Okay, let's fool around. Okay, I'm starting to like that quite a bit. So let's go ahead and let's bring it into our Photoshop, because I always like to bring it into Photoshop to do one little thing for you, which is to add a quick little border so we can see it here. All right, in fact, I think your screen is going to have that a little bit too cropped because of the widescreen effects. Hopefully that should work for us. Okay, so again, that's our final image. I'm really pleased with it. It's making it a lot more dreamy, a lot more of what I remember in the scene. So actually what I'm going to go ahead and do, whoops, let me bring my menus back up by hitting the tab. Now we're in Adobe Photoshop, like I said. I'm going to go ahead and save this image because I want to bring it up to my file browser and we'll kind of compare what we did here. So, oops, I still have that darn border. Look at that. Okay, that's okay for our presentation purposes. There's the final image. And then I'm actually going to remove the settings that we just did. Clear settings. So as you can see, we went from this, which is very high contrasty, again, not quite what we were remembering in the forest, over to this, which really brightened it up, made it warmer, made it more colorful. You made it so much more dreamy, and that's really what you remember. And a lot of times when you're editing, that's what you're trying to do, is get it back to what was in your mind when you took the picture, whether that was reality or not. So that's what we've done here today. So I do appreciate you watching after the shot today. Remember to like and subscribe if you are on YouTube watching this, and if you're on Facebook or Instagram, make sure to like and follow and hit all those little buttons and hearts and whatever's there. I do appreciate it very much. And on behalf of Nala and I, and she's leaving us, she is done, she knows it's over. Appreciate you watching. You have a good day. Bye-bye. Are you coming out of the box to see me? Are you? Come on. You're needed in the show. Come on. Oh. We need you in the show. Sit. Sit there. Oh, yes. So good. So good. Such a good kitty.